The decisions made inside Wichita Falls City Hall affect you, no matter what side of town you live on. As your local election headquarters, KFDX3 has the 3 candidates for mayor on one stage. Find out their version of the future of Wichita Falls and who deserves your vote on November 3rd. Welcome to the 2020 Wichita Falls Mayoral Debate.
From your election headquarters, welcome to the 2020 Wichita Falls Mayoral Debate for this Nexstar Media Group special presentation. I'm Daryl Franklin, evening anchor at KFDX, also Texomashomepage Fox, and it is a proud night for us to be up here tonight. Very happy to be co-moderating this event with Dr. Steve Garrison, MSU political science professor. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at a wide shot. We've taken measures to keep everyone safe this evening. As you can see, we're following CDC's coronavirus social distancing guidelines. The candidates and we moderators, we're all 6 feet apart, and we have no live audience. Here's a quick rundown of the rules. Each candidate will have 60 seconds to answer the main question, 30 seconds for rebuttal, and if needed, 30 seconds for follow-ups. When time is up, a candidate's going to hear this bell. Now, there are no opening statements, but each candidate will get 60 seconds for closing remarks. Now, let's go ahead and introduce you to our candidates. Longtime Wichita Falls resident and businessman Kevin Hunter. He's running for political office for the very first time. As a graduate of Midwestern State University, Hunter has been an oil and gas consultant since 1983. Wichita Falls Mayor Stephen Santillana is seeking his final term after being elected to the position in 2016. Before that, you remember he served as city councilor for District 1. And Wichita County Detention Officer James Hewling is also in this race for mayor. He served 6 years in the United States Army. Hewling also rose to fame after appearing on 2 seasons of the reality TV show Big Brother. Now, before the debate, each candidate drew numbers, and we had 1, 2, 3, and each of the podiums, 1, 2, 3. Kevin Hunter drew number 1, and James Hewling, you have number 3. So we're going to open up with you, and we'll close with closing remarks at the end with you. So with that opening question, we'll go ahead and send it over to Dr. Steve Garrison.
Thank you, Daryl, and I just wanted to take a moment on behalf of all the voters to thank KFDX for providing this opportunity to learn about our mayoral candidates. As former Speaker of the House O'Neill famously said, all politics is local. Well, tonight the focus is on our local politics. Gentlemen, today COVID-19 is the biggest challenge facing our community. The latest city finance reports show that this pandemic has caused a $3.2 million loss in revenue for the city. Kevin Hunter, as a candidate, and if you're elected, how long do you think it will take for the city to recover from this pandemic, and what plans do you have to restore the losses from COVID-19 without impacting the tax rate?
You know, who knows? This is unprecedented, this COVID. Year, 2. I think the quicker we open everything up and get back to a normal life, the quicker we can start regaining our life. You know, could it be a year or 2? You know, when you talk about national debt, the PPP plans that we paid on, you know, that's going to trickle down. Year, 2 years? I don't know. I guess it depends on how comfortable people become with the vaccine. You know, are they ready to take it, or are they ready to return to normal life with no mask, where we can sit right across the table from each other and be comfortable? You know, I really don't know. I mean, I guess the only person who knows is going to be God or Jesus Christ. And that's all I've got.
Okay, Mayor Santillana, if reelected, what plans do you have to restore the losses from COVID-19 without impacting our tax rate?
Well, we already have an aggressive plan to kind of replenish what we had in our fund balance. You know, it's our savings account that we had to borrow from. You know, we have to balance the economic health of our community as well as the actual health of our community. I'm like Kevin, you know, we want to open up for business. Businesses are suffering now. Small businesses are suffering even more. So our community has suffered enough. You know, to put a timeline on that is tough, but we do have a plan. More than anything, you need to have a plan, an economic plan, in order to push forward. First and foremost, we want to make sure that we get that money back into our fund balance, the money that we've borrowed. Sales tax is coming up. We know that already. We know that, you know, today, if you had to put a timeline on it, it's going to be very tough. But it's a balance. It's a balance, and it's something that council has to look at and work in coordination with with our city leaders and with our city manager to make sure that we can formulate a plan that's going to be able to press forward in the next 6 months or so. It's aggressive, and I think that's about all we can say when it comes to a timeline.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Hewling. Sorry. Mr. Hewling, what about you? What are your plans to revitalize the economy in this recovery, restore the losses from COVID-19 without impacting the tax rate?
Well, that would go back to opening some businesses back up. I know that's the stressful thing that we have going on right now in Wichita Falls is when can businesses open back up and be full functional as where they make their money at, and it's in dining restaurants for most of the people downtown in Wichita Falls. I think our problem, what we have now, is nobody wants to take that jump on the gun to say, hey, this is the right time. I feel like this is the time that we need to open up the businesses back in Wichita Falls, and what percent and what capacity do we do that at to make that decision. So it's going to be very important these next few months and coming into the year that we, make those right decisions so we can get the businesses back on track.
Okay, this next question's for Mayor Santillana. Looking back over the past many months now, is there anything different that the city of Wichita Falls could have done better in how the city handled the COVID crisis and still is handling the crisis? Also, is there anything that the city of Wichita Falls can do to help our bar owners here locally that are hurting so much right now?
First part of that question is, as a city leader, there was not a lot we could do when we're taking, cues from the governor's office, and that's coming all the way down from the national to our governor's office down to us. I was in a unique position because I sit in a position to where during emergency management, the mayor basically takes over and we get to have these emergency orders. It was tough. It was a tough position to be in because I'm actually taking orders down from above, and I'm having to do this in conjunction with Woody Gossam and taking a hard look at what our community looks like. In reference to bars, that's an even tougher one because right now, sitting in the mayor's lap, we have to do these permits for outdoor permits, and bars weren't as affected bars were affected more than other places. Right now, that's a state issue. To put that into the local hands is not something we want to do. But we've written the letters. I joined a consortium of over 40 mayors that wrote to the governor's office and basically said we need to get these bars open because picking on one aspect of the economy and not the other, I didn't feel was right. Okay,
Mr. Hewling, same question to you.
I would have to say that I spoke with a few business owners that, speaking of which, the deep end, they were 6 months in, no revenue since March. And what they found out they had to do to get open and start getting money influx back into their business is where they had to meet that cap of 51% over the alcohol beverage. So the only thing that was holding them back was the fact that they didn't sell food that, the TABC requires of, percentage of profit of their business, which is 51%. So what they did was they got Slurpee machines, they got hot dog rollers, and they did the permits and everything, sent in the money. And now they're qualified to open back up under state regulations, and that's what they're doing. They did a soft opening today. So.
Okay, and is there anything that you believe over the past several months that the city of Wichita Falls could have done better in how they handled the COVID crisis as so far?
I think the leaders of Wichita did what they felt was best at the time because they didn't really know how to handle. This is all new, new territory, new waters that they were having to deal with that no city leader had to deal with before. So at the time, I think they made the right decision. I think that it did need a little bit more looking into as far as what they could have done educating that 51% for the bar owners. We could have maybe, found that out and put that information out a little bit earlier so we could have opened up a little bit sooner.
Okay, Mr. Hunter, the question to you. Anything the city, in your opinion, could have done better?
When I was watching Stephen and Woody on TV that Thursday, I was asking myself, what would you do? Well, I'm going to have to wait on what Governor Abbott, because he's the law of the state. He's going to set the policy. And I felt like they jumped the gun, especially when I hear Judge Gossam talking about fining people $1,000 to wear a mask, if they don't enforce this. And I'm going, I have a problem with that. And I think there's been some discriminatory situations, when you see some of the bars around town that are selling food, but everybody's, and I've been a party to it, are drinking shoulder to shoulder, but some bar owners can open. But they've still got rent due, they've got payrolls, they've got other bills to pay, and they're still shut down, what I understand. I just think there should have been some better equality. And, you know, you talked about Archer County having less infections, but, you know, they were getting away with some of this. Wichita Falls, we had higher infections, but, you know, it's a matter of somebody driving down the road 5 or 10 minutes, and they were able to get away with it. And I just thought that was a little discriminatory.
Okay, Mayor Santiano, you have 30 seconds if you'd like to have anything in response to that.
Yeah, just like James said, there was no playbook. You know, nobody's been part of a worldwide pandemic. And for a mayor, you know, we had to look at the enforcement piece of it. You know, how does a municipal force enforce a state action? And also, it's the flood of information. It was changing. It was ever changing every single day. The information came in so quick and so fast. One guy akined it to basically drinking from a fire hydrant, and that's how it was. But I think we did a fantastic job here in Wichita Falls, and I praise all of everybody that was behind those efforts.
Okay, James Hewling, I wanted to ask you a little bit about the issues with racism that we've encountered both nationally and locally. And in a recent city council meeting, Mayor Santiana made somewhat of a controversial statement when discussing racism in Wichita Falls. He suggested people turn a blind eye. Would you have approached that situation from a different approach or whatever? You know, obviously we're in hindsight and we're looking back at things, but when you're thrust into those positions of having to deal with sensitive issues, how would you have approached that?
Well, that goes back to, you know, I think Mayor Stephen was in a tough situation going through, you know, with all the movements and the protesting they have going on throughout the world right now. I think that the situation when he stated that it was misconstrued because I mean, I've known Mayor Stephen for a long time, and I personally don't think that he's, you know, racist or a racial person. But I would say, you know, me dealing with a lot of racism myself, being a minority as well, I would have definitely probably worded it a little bit differently. You know, it's just all about the wording, you know, what you feel at the time, but I think it just got worded wrong.
Okay. Kevin Hunter, how would you have approached the issue?
You know, as a Caucasian, I can't really differ what Stephen said. I think there was too much elaboration, which opens yourself up to some of those criticisms. I've read the monument just like he has. It's been there. Does it offend some people? I guess it does. Some I've asked don't. You know, racism. As a Caucasian, I could see their point of view. I've talked to James Hester, his roommate, about it. You know, they consider the Confederates treason because, you know, they were fighting the Union. Okay, I've never been in the military. I kind of understand that, where he's coming from, but still it is concerning. But, you know, the monument's been down there for years. Why does it need to be changed now? If it does, and the citizens want it, okay, let's see about moving it or go to a general vote, but no special election, if that's what they want.
Okay. Mayor Santiana, it's been a rough couple of months here. How would you, looking back on that, would you have approached that a little bit differently?
Absolutely not. I approached it exactly how my value system told me to approach it. You know, I was raised in a certain way. You know, we're all going to have different opinions about that monument. And to me, that's what it is. It's just a monument. It doesn't affect my life, affect my decision-making ability for the city of Wichita Falls, for my family, or my Christian values. I see it, when I say I turn a blind eye to that monument, not racism. Being a man of color, of course, I've experienced racism in my life. But I've been brought up to ignore those things. I will never fight hate with hate. You know, MLK said it best. You can't fight hate with hate. You can't fight darkness with darkness. You know, I've spent the last 5 years trying to knock down bricks between me and other groups, not try to put those bricks ahead of us. I've never been able to scream at somebody and get a positive reaction. So would I have changed my stance on it? Absolutely not. Would I hope that people didn't misconstrue what I said? Absolutely. Social media is a cruel beast, but it's fine. That's the world that I live in, and that's the position that I am, so I have to live with those decisions.
Okay, Mr. Hunter, first question for you,
Okay.
and I believe I have your answer already. I'd like to hear from the other candidates as well. Then
What's the
you
question?
believe that it should be left up to the voters in Wichita Falls as to what to do with the Confederate monument in front of
I
City
wouldn't
Hall
have a
and
problem
Memorial
with that.
Auditorium?
I'm not going to spend money on a special election, but I visited with James Hester right after that and was getting his point of view as a minority. And James, Jason, I'm sorry. And, when he made the observation about being ex-military and the Confederates being treasonous, I could kind of see his point of view.
Okay, Mayor?
You know, as far as moving the monument, you know, same thing. We're all going to have different standpoints on that. For me, there's a process for that. You know, the citizens have a process. A lot of times I can't say, as a council of 7, we need to make that decision for all the citizens. If the citizens really feel strongly about that, I feel just like running for office. Work hard at it. You know, if you need to go out there and get the votes, work hard just like we're doing right now. You know, you can do petitions, you can go door to door, you can raise money towards those efforts. You know, I'm not going to stop anybody, but people have to realize, you know, when you sit on council, you represent all 104,000 people. That's black, white, that's male, female, Democrat, Republican, and that you can't just make a snap decision based upon one group coming in and saying this monument is racist. You know, snap decisions, knee-jerk decisions usually aren't the right decisions. You know, I have to make decisions where I go home at night, put my head on my pillow and go to sleep. If I don't, and I find myself not going to sleep, maybe it wasn't the right decision. But I also think that, you know, for us, there is a petition. There's a way to do this, and I don't think it should be up to left to 7 people to decide on the basis of 105.
How do you feel about it, Mr. Hewling?
I have to kind of agree with Mayor Stephen over here. You know, I noticed a lot in Wichita, being a resident as well. A lot of people take to Facebook, you know, rants and raves and stuff like that, and you know, they'll put their voice their opinion out there on social media. But you know, the city council will hold a meeting, and you'll have 2 people show up. And to me, that's not the support, you know, that they're needing to make right decisions when they need to make those type of strong decisions. But we have to remember that we are in that elected position that we have to do what's right for the public. So if the public majority is wanting that to happen, we have to really take that into circumstances and execute those decisions as a board.
Okay, Mayor, as you're well aware, the lifeblood of our economy are our local businesses. What should the role of the City Council be in helping local businesses recover from this global pandemic?
You know, we get that question a lot, and truthfully, we've had a lot of financial help from the federal government down to the state of Texas, but it hasn't trickled its way into our community. Just the other day was meeting with Senator John Cornyn and asked him, you know, we were going around, our area clinics have gotten some funding and some CARES Act money. The city of Wichita Falls has got some CARES Act money, but it's handcuffed. You know, right now we're begging our state governor, you know, the restrictions and the regulations they have on this money are so great that we can never get our hands on this money. So we're begging, you know, for the federal government and for our own governor to take the handcuffs off, allow us this money to trickle into our community so we can give it to our small businesses. And it's not just small businesses. We're talking about nonprofits too. When you can't have fundraisers, nonprofits suffer. When nonprofits suffer, our community suffers. And that's point blank. You know, PPP did a good job. But it wasn't enough, and I don't think it ever can be enough. But there is a stack of money out there we just can't get our hands on right now, and we're begging and pleading for it. And hopefully, you know, maybe a couple more emails and letter writing, we'll be able to get there.
Okay, Mr. Hewling, what role do you think the City Council should play in helping local businesses recover from the pandemic?
Being good stewardships of the city taxes and making sure that, you know, all the funds that we have, the general funding, the policies, the 4A, 4B fund that's set aside, that everything is being utilized, making sure that the city council, the city manager are all working together as a cohesive unit to make sure that all the outlets that we have as far as the federal government, what Stephen was talking about, is making sure that we are applying for that to get that money, to be up in their face saying, hey, we need this money, we need these restrictions taken off because these small businesses that we have downtown that, you know, we support are drowning right now. And y'all are saying that we can't use this money because of this one little thing, this 51%.
Okay, Mr. Hunter, what do you believe the appropriate
Could you
role?
repeat the question?
Yeah, absolutely. What role should the City Council play in helping local businesses recover from this global pandemic?
You know, the complaints I hear about code enforcement, permitting, you know, maybe working, be a little flexible about that. You know, could we get the rules changed? We talk about state money. You know, there's a lot of criteria on 4A and 4B. Maybe lobbying for that to change the criteria because, you know, like right now, we're spending money on a mural downtown, but we're in the middle of a pandemic. And I know that's what got a lot of people irritated. Why are we spending money on something like that when we've got other, I think, necessary concerns that we need to address? And murals aren't going to, in my opinion, I guess it's a good, attractive eye appeal, but it's not going to do anything for our city. And that's why issues like that have always concerned me, I guess.
Okay, Mr. Hewling, next question for you. We've got several vacant hotels, large hotels in the downtown area. You've got the Hotel by the Falls. You have the Grand Hotel that's near Impact. And then across from Big Blue, the old Holiday Inn down there. It was beautiful in its heyday.
Right.
Would you be in support of allowing incentives to be offered for investors to come in and save those buildings, maybe one at a time, but would you be in favor of working toward incentives?
Absolutely, 100%. You know, these buildings that we have in Wichita, they're all costing the city money if they're just sitting there. If we're not making a profit, we're taking a cut and we're taking a loss, and then in the back end, it's going to be coming out of the taxpayers' money. So my thing is right now is if we have somebody that's in for it that wants to help support and utilize those buildings, we need to relax on some of the policies or maybe some of the permits that we're going to require. Maybe reach out to them and be good stewardships and not wait for them to come to us. And, you know, we need to reach out to them and say, hey, this building is available. Is there anything that you want to do? So.
Okay, Mr. Hunter?
You know, my primary concern would be what I've read on those tax abatements for downtown is, you know, make sure they do have the money to have the fire suppressors so we don't, unless they're wanting to collect the insurance money. But putting a lot of money into them, no. I'm a private enterprise type guy. I'm totally against public consensus stuff for things like that. I've never believed in it. If they can't stand alone, so be it. But, you know, if they want money for fire suppressors, extinguishers, okay, I'm for that, you know, to put out a fire. But the rest of it, no, I'm not.
Okay, and the mayor?
You know, the 3P plan, private-public partnerships, is a huge plan for municipalities all over the state. Matter of fact, all over the United States. Private-public partnerships, you know, are a big part of revitalization. There are already grants out there, tax credits available to a lot of people for buildings, and revitalization is part of a strong strategic plan. It was one of our strategic goals, and we've seen a strong strategic plan and that strategic goal work in our own downtown. And it was towards fire suppression, just like Kevin said. There's a lot of people that use that towards fire suppression. But it's, you know, it's not an over-assistance of money. Sometimes it's just to prop somebody up and able to get them over the hump to over that. But it's not that impact. It's that indirect impact. It's the economic impact from that business opening and us being a 2% partner in that. A lot of people don't realize when a business opens, 8.25% sales tax, the city of Wichita Falls gets 2%. We're partners in every business open. So if we are able to, with a little bit of assistance, help prop up a business, get them open, revitalize downtown, I'm all for it. Public-private partnerships are fantastic.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Hunter, how do you plan to improve business recruitment and expansion in Wichita Falls so that city residents, future MSU Texas graduates, have viable job opportunities in our community?
You know, we've talked about this a lot, and me is, you know, you hear the stories about Ray Clymer, what he did for this town. And I talked to Mr. Alani, who had served on a lot of boards with him, is, you know, the man would go round up money and then get on an airplane, and it was for his cost. And look what he did. We've got AC Spark Plug, WashX, stuff like that. Somebody's got to be the point man that's got some charisma to bring those stuff to town. Now, does the younger generation want to work in a factory with those benefits? I like to think so. My generation did. It wasn't that bad. There was a lot of opportunities of people I know that worked out there that are still working for GM in Arlington that worked here. And it's stuff like that we've got to do. Midwestern, you know, do you argue that the trade schools versus an education, white collar versus blue collar? You know, it's just back to having opportunities. It'll vary anywhere. It's just having where somebody can do what they want to. If they're not interested in getting an education, maybe they like to do it with their hands.
Okay, Mayor, what are your plans to improve business recruitment and expansion in Wichita Falls?
You know, we spent the last couple of years working on a strong economic plan, and it's working. It's finally working. We've got factories coming in, Pamlico Air. We talk about business retention and expansion. You know, it's not just bringing people in, but it's making sure that when those businesses come in, that we expand them and we retain them. You know, that's how you grow your economic base. You know, the old model of hopping in a jet and going and having a beer with somebody is antiquated. That just doesn't work anymore. You know, what we have now is the Chamber of Commerce, which is funded through 4A, and you have great people like David Leeser that works for the Chamber of Commerce and Henry Florsham that work each and every single day. And then you have people like me support it. It's 4A, 4B, it's MSU, it's Shepherd Air Force Base. It's all these people. It's a collaborative effort now. You know, it's a lot of parties working towards economic development. It's no longer one man that can do it. It's a lot of people. You got to have a lot of strong leaders in your community, and those people working with a collaborative effort towards one goal, and that's economic growth.
Okay, Mr. Hewling, what are your plans?
Just to piggyback off of what Mayor Stevens said, it starts with our city leaders. We're going to have to go out there and do a lot of recruitment as well. You know, coming from South Carolina, I came from a small town, Sumter, South Carolina. We were struggling as far as the same thing what we're doing in Wichita, being able to keep people. And the city leaders reached out to Continental Tire, and they was able to bring a Continental Tire there, and it created thousands of jobs for the city. I'm not saying that this is the same case of what happened in Wichita, but if we're not using, you know, our economic, you know, knowledge, our city leader, our city manager, and all our board members, and Henry Florissant with downtown development, we're not going to get nothing done. And we can sit here and talk about it all day long and run in circles, but if we don't actually have someone that's passionate, that's going to start from the top and work its way down, because, you know, in every job and business, they always say stuff rolls downhill, and that's the truth. So we need to get on it and stop talking about it, and let's be about it.
Mayor?
Yes. What I would add to that is a lot of people don't realize, you know, we're not always going to win the game with home runs. We're not going to bring those big factories back. Although we are, you know, Pamlico Air, you know, a couple hundred jobs, Panda Biotech, Eagle Railcar. These are all big factories coming back, filling the old Stanley building, filling the old Delphi building. So they're coming back. 1,800 jobs in the aggregate over the past 5 years. These are good jobs. So economic incentives that we have, using 4A money to incentivize these people, is great. You know, 1,800 jobs, nothing to sneeze at in the last 5 years. We're not going to always have a home run, but we can win a lot of ball games with singles and doubles.
And Mr. Hunter, you can answer to that too, and also about recruitment, whether you can hop and go and have a beer and bring people to town.
Well, I mean, it worked before, and I still believe in meeting and putting a face with a name, handshaking. But, you know, when you look at some of the jobs and they talk about $15 an hour, that's not going to grow our tax base. That's not going to buy a home. I wish it would, but it's not unless their spouse has a really good job. That's why I've looked at our budget from the chamber. It used to be a $200,000 deal, now it's up to 1.1. We're now hiring another person to do downtown development to recruit business out of town. We've got downtown development that's going to do things from inside Wichita Falls. I don't understand the overlapping responsibilities.
Okay, moving on. We're going to slow it down just a little bit. We'll get right back to the issues. But first, this question for you, Mayor, first. Why did you decide to go ahead and seek re-election?
You know, I want to finish what I started. We got so many good things. Wichita Falls is in a great place. You know, when I talk about these collaborative efforts, people working together, you know, it's one of the first things I want to do is make sure that we had all the community leaders that were going to sit around a round table and kind of reprioritize ourselves. We have a strong strategic plan with City Council right now, and those goals are working. You know, I don't see a need for a change. Although I get beat up quite a bit on social media, rants and raves, I don't know what they never rave about anything. They're always just ranting. But, you know, social media is tough, and a lot of times I take those things tough. But, you know, you sit down with your family and you talk about it. And for me, I wanted to continue on with the great things that we have going on. You know, housing market is booming. Trails are being built. I have a great council, a wonderful staff, the Chamber of Commerce, Shepherd Air Force Base. We're all growing, and I want to be a part of that for another couple of years.
It's possible you'll make a rant tonight, too.
That's right.
Would not be a surprise. Mr. Hewling, why did you decide to go ahead and launch your campaign?
Well, that's a good question. You know, ever since I started with the Big Brother situation that happened back in 2015 and 16, I came to Wichita Falls and I saw the big sign on the front coming in, blue skies and golden opportunities. That's what I saw. Once I got on Big Brother, I came back and I was like, man, you know, this is a city, and I was shocked because there was hardly anything to do, you know, and I was coming from a city that, you know, you had big college towns and you got MSU there, but there was nothing to do. And, you know, this is the only thing I probably have to say I disagree with Mayor Stevens is, you know, when people come to Wichita Falls, they ask me what is there to do. And me as a Wichita resident, it's hard to tell them something that will really entice them to actually do something other than going out to Dallas or Fort Worth, going to Billy Bob's or going to Weedstock or, you know, in Stillwater, Oklahoma, all these big festival concerts events. I could say, hey, we have the falls. You go, you know, ride some bike trails or go to Walmart or go to the mall. I mean, you know, so that's why I wanted to run for the entertainment industry and to help the citizens of Wichita.
And Mr. Hunter.
You know, I've always been politically active at the last 2 years. I had concerns, you know, when you see our tax rates, that's the main thing. You know, when Stephen took office, we were collecting $29 million a year in property taxes. It's up to $39 million. That's a 35% increase. I want to know where the money's going. I have concerns like that. I've always been, I think, a doer. I want better schools, not to touch that subject, but I just feel like you got to quit griping. You've got to get in the middle of it. And, you know, the people that don't vote, I feel like you don't have a right to gripe. But I've always been one of those that stepped up. I'm not going to go into my other histories. I think everybody's pretty well been exposed to that. But I am a doer. I just believe in private enterprise, and this is what I'm running on.
Okay, Mr. Hewling, so one of the constant challenges we face in this community are water usage issues. We went through this terrible drought a couple of years ago. The city provides water service for residents, 15 wholesale customers, amounting to service for 150,000 individuals. If you're elected mayor, how would you help prepare the city for a future drought?
Well, first off, we got to start paying off some debt. I know, you know, the water system has been killing us from the drought, and we're still trying to recover from that. As a city and entity, you know, we have all these other bonds and everything that we're trying to push out, but what about paying off our water debt first? And that's my thing right now. And I know, you know, we're working towards that, but I feel like that should be our first and main priority before we start anything else.
Okay, Mr. Hunter, how would you help prepare the city for a future drought?
You know, I think we've done an excellent job on instituting the water reuse program. It's a lot of debt. It started out as only revenue bond of $61 million. Looking at the bond schedules here, we still owe over $20 million, probably more than that when you add. I think as a community, we've really done a good job on conservation. If it gets back onto the horizon again, when we get down to 60 or 70%, I think as a community we do step up. You know, where do we go next? You know, a new lake? I don't know. But you know, you hear all the time our water rates are too high. Well, it does demand conservation, but we've got to pay these revenue bonds off. That's the only revenue bond the city owns. And I feel like we just, it's a step in the right direction to get that paid off. And of course, you know, I doubt the city will ever lower the water rates as much as I would like to.
Okay. Mayor, how would you prepare the city for a future drought?
You know, preparing the city for the future drought is something we've been doing for years and years. You know, we war chest $1 million a year towards Lake Ringgold. A lot of people, right now, it's a hot button topic. You know, a lot of people are either on this side of the fence, Lake Ringgold, or this side of the fence. You know, we're 5 years removed from a record drought. You know, people don't realize that. And you hit it perfectly. You know, Doc, you said 150,000 customers. That includes people in our park, Windthorst, and our surrounding community. Ask Shepherd Air Force Base how they want us to approach our water situation in Wichita Falls. You know, ask MSU how they want to approach our water situation in Falls. I think it's incumbent upon elected officials to look at every single outlet possible in order to protect, you know, water and our future water for Wichita Falls. I think it's incumbent upon us, and I think that's something we're going to continue to do. Although Lake Ringgold's in its infancy right now, and we're kind of not there. We're just taking that next step. We just got to be looking to the future. You know, we're not guaranteed water ever.
Okay, so Mr. Hunter, Lake Ringgold, it's a big deal that everybody's been talking about, but it's estimated it's going to cost at this time. When it's built, the price could be much higher than even then, than even now. But $250 and $300 million or more in between that price range. It's going to take decades to pay that off. It's going to be much higher water bills for future generations. There aren't a lot of options out there right now. The mayor is in support. You touched on it just a little bit. Is it still, with that huge cost, is it the way to go in your opinion?
You know, we were, 60 days away from running out of water. I want to tell you, I'll enlighten you. I've got a neighbor that lives down the street, and, you know, the rumor is the city council will be voting on this. Well, he's told me he'll introduce a bill that's going to put this to the voters. And I said, okay, I could go for that. Let's let the whole 104,000 decide this, or 100. I'm not going to include all red prisoners. But it really enlightened me. I mean, it was eye-opening, and he was a little adamant about that. I guess not to drop a bomb on you, but that's what was quoted to me.
Okay, so Mayor, is it going to be, in your opinion, would it be worth the cost then?
Absolutely, and he's not dropping a bomb. He's in referencing to our state representative James Frank, who's mulling around, and possibly other state representatives, possibly putting these large bonds, you know, to the voters. For me, it's not going to be something that I'm going to be facing during my term now, or maybe my next 2 years. It's something that future councilors are going to be facing. If it's got to be, if the state of Texas says it's got to be put to a vote, fine, we'll live with that. I think at the time, whenever we're there, 10, 15, 20 years from now, that council's going to have to face that decision. But it's still, my responsibility as mayor now is to make sure that I look to the future to securing future water. I'm not worried about the financing piece because we're 15 years away from that.
Future generations, Mr. Hewling, do you think that they should go ahead and go in the direction of Lake Ringgold, knowing all that you know?
Well, because, Mayor Stephen just said that, there's no certainty in that, so why should we vote on this now that's 15 years out? I know it's going to take some time there, but we're basing a lot on our future generations on what if. What ifs can get you, it's the mother of all. So, I mean, my thing is right now is we're trying to pass school bonds, we're trying to pay off our water bills, but also then again, when's it going to stop? Because there's other things in Wichita that needs to be worked on as well. And, right now we're looking at everything. We're trying to drop, we're in an economic crisis right now, and we're trying to drop all these huge bonds on everyone, voting for this, for their Lake Ringgold, voting for the school, voting for, the bridge that just passed as far as the pier and everything, that was $1.something million. So all that in entity is the future generation. We shouldn't have to vote on that right now, I feel like.
Okay, Mr. Hunter, you have 30 seconds.
I want to go on the record that we have to keep the ball rolling as far as permitting of the lake. I mean, that's just a no-brainer because you can't go out there with a bulldozer tomorrow and start damming up the Wichita River. You've got to stay with the permitting process. That way, if the desire and the need is there, the voters approve it, you're ready to go. I just want to go on the record. I do agree with that.
I agree with Mr. Hunter. You just press forward. I mean, it wouldn't be something that I would recommend to the council. I don't think our management, Russell Schreiber, or anybody, any entity that depends on this water. I mean, a lot of people depend on the water. They look into Wichita Falls. A lot of people look to Wichita Falls for their water. I think they're looking to us like, keep pressing forward, take step by step. Once we see the economic impact, these financing mechanisms, then we can really, future council can take a look at this.
Okay, Mayor. Recently, Mr. Hunter helped bring in 2 entrepreneurs who are proposing a long-term lease agreement with the city to manage the impact and bring in a wider variety of entertainment and shows. Do you think this is the best direction for the city to go in?
Which direction is that? Bringing in outsiders to?
With the long-term lease agreement with the city to manage the impact?
For me, as soon as I got on council, one of the first things I looked at was our impact subsidy, our general fund subsidy and impact. And, we got with Darren Lacker, and we decided that we're going to do like other communities. We're not going to be in the entertainment business. What we're going to do is we're going to stick to water, sewer, fire, police. That's what we're good at. We're going to stick to those and hire a professional company. It worked with Castaway Cove, and let's see if it works with impact in our facilities. We hired Spectre after culling down a lot of prospective individuals that wanted to come and manage these facilities, and it's worked well in holding that, maintaining the line. It just takes a lot. Bringing in an outsider that has farm and ranch shows is not going to be able to financially, run that, look at the facility management piece of it, the catering piece of it, 5,000 people. It's just tough. There's a process for that, and I think we need to follow that process. Right now, I'm in contract. We're in contract with somebody for 5 years. When that contract ends, we'll put another request for proposal out.
Okay, Mr. Hewling, what do you think? Is this the best direction for the city to move into?
I like Kevin's idea. Like I said, that goes back to piggyback what I said off of earlier. In order to keep the MSU students, in order to keep the the Air Force Base and all the younger generation that we have in Wichita, we have to have some programs, events. We have to start looking into Lucy Park, utilizing that as more as an event place that we can hold events. We have great land and we have great city facilities, but I feel like we don't utilize these facilities as much as that we should because, we got our eye on, up here, but we forget about the little things that are in the middle that we need to be focusing on as well. So I think those things get lost. So I'm totally with Kevin, on that topic.
Okay. Mr. Hunter, want to enlighten us?
It's funny, a video that my wife did sitting on my couch when it hit me when I was thinking about the impact one day, how I think it's got traction. I listened to the guy's story. He's got a history with our impact. He's put it together for 12 years. He's got other experiences in other towns. Is he the guy we need to go with? I don't know. But, we're losing. It's $700,000 they're anticipating this year in our general fund. We've got to start thinking, that contract correct me, is up a year from October. We've got to start planning what to do next. If it's Spectrum, is it Darren, I'm sorry, and Jared? Maybe so. It's just something, it's funny how private industries, I'm looking at some way to cut those subsidies down and to get it off the taxpayers. And to get, we can be in the black, hopefully every year. I think it's very doable, and I still believe it's very doable. And, you know, when we talk about the hotel, you know, I wondered what Spectrum's official opinion on the hotel.
Okay, Mayor, did you have a follow-up?
Yeah, you know, I don't know who the savior's going to be. I don't know if Darren Dell from Bird City, Kansas is going to come in and save the city and be able to bring all these events in. But that's how we have a process. We have a our RFQ. We're going to see what their qualifications are. And for those, you know, for those facilities, you know, it's not just MPEC. It's Kay Yeager, it's J.L. Bridwell, and it's our Memorial Auditorium. You know, I need somebody, we need somebody, the citizens deserve somebody, a professional company, to come in and make sure that they qualify for that. But if it's Darren Dell, it's Darren Dell. But he'll have his, you know, his day to, come October in a year, he'll have an opportunity to submit a proposal.
Okay, James, did you want to follow up?
Well, yeah, just a little bit on the Spectra side. I mean, you know, Spectra, Mayor Stephen, do you feel Spectra did a good job with the Impact Center, what we have now? I mean, when I went to Spectra, the events that we had there, one of the big artists that I am personally friends with, Cody Johnson, he went there, and he actually came back and told me afterwards that they probably won't ever come back here because of the ticket sales were horrible. And I don't know if that's just because of the Wichita Falls residents, or was it not, advertised right, or did we not do our part in the city, to get that out, saying, hey, Cody Johnson's in town. So
he asked a question, so I'm going to answer it real quick.
Go
ahead. Ticket sales is not up to Spectra, and it's not, it's up to the popularity of the artists. We've had a tough time Wichita Falls supporting. We have a new hockey team, the Warriors, so go Warriors. I'm going to see how they support this team. Concerts come in. We had Jerry Seinfeld, world-renowned comedian, 1,000 tickets. It's tough. I don't know why I can't get Wichitans to go to events. I buy tickets to the events. I take my family to the events, and I'm hoping in the future, that people will support these events.
And before the next question, Mr. Hunter, go ahead. You had a follow-up.
This is in my wheelhouse, I feel like, because of my video. One of the things I just want to point out, we've got to do something about cutting. I want to understand, we've had a leaking roof at J.S. Bridwell ever since it was built. It's going to take $1 million. They said they can't fix it. They're going to have to replace it. We've got to start thinking about that, because are you going to do $1 million bond or fundraiser to repair that? Because you can't have events here with the rain pouring down, and that's what it was expressed to me from Darren and Jared.
Tax. That money was going to go towards repairs, and that was voter approved. So it's going to produce about $500,000 to $600,000 to go directly towards those roofs. So that's a good point that you brought up.
So when are we going to have the money to replace it?
It's through hot tax. So as it gets generated, we use that money.
Okay. Unlike the debate the other night, we decided to go ahead and let this one breathe because everything's going just fine right here. But real fast, that $60 million hotel convention center pre-development work it's underway again. I want to hear the stance of each of you on that project. Mayor, starting with you.
Starting with, this is an easy project for us. I don't do anything that's not a win-win for the city of Wichita Falls. We are competing directly with every other city for conventions. Conventions as bodies as money being dropped in here. Using it as, a civic center and us trading money. I'm buying Kevin's pencils, he's buying my beef jerky, does not grow our sales tax. I need people from outside of Wichita Falls coming into Wichita Falls and it's bringing more conventions in. What's the model that people use today that every other city is using? On-site hotels. Now, we've ran through this for 4 or 5 years, finally found somebody that wants to invest $40 million in our community. That's nothing to sneeze at. This is a hotelier, O'Reilly, management, that part of the O'Reilly Auto Parts, that has several of these hotels. They do their studies. They say it's a viable. I'm not going to stop them. I want them to come here because immediately when you say you have an on-site hotel, you have a direct impact to our economy. More bodies coming to Wichita Falls is what we need, and that increases hot sales, it increases income to the economy, it increases events. These are people that are willing to spend their own money to attract people to come to Wichita Falls.
Mr. Hewling.
I would say, just from being at the other hotels that we have in Wichita, we can't even keep them full. I've been to the other hotels, and I got friends that work in the hotel industry, and anytime I go in there, they're hardly ever booked out. The only time these hotels are booked out is during hotter than hell, and that's the only time you can really not find a room or vacant room in Wichita at that time. So building another big old hotel in Wichita, is that going to bring in people? If we don't have the events, if we don't have that right drive to bring the people in Wichita, we're not going to fill that hotel. I mean, we could sit there and build it and then say, hey, we have a brand new hotel, come to Wichita. That's not going to bring the people to Wichita. So I think we need to focus on how we need to attract these people first, and to drive them into our city first before we start building the big old hotel.
Mr. Hunter, what's your opinion on it?
You know, I've always said, gone on record, give them the land, let them build it. I don't want to put any tax dollars in it. You know, they're talking about building another convention center with different venues. You know, I wonder, you've got a contract with Spectrum now, but you're going to put a hotel with another convention center. You've got a competitor that's going to be from me to you, from the doors. I mean, how does that going to fit their deal? You're going to have competition. There's going to be some type of overlap on those venues. How's Spectrum going to feel about that? I'd be curious to know. You know, well, we'll see.
They love it.
You know, if this deal, like the impact was sold to the voters back in the 90s, late 90s, you know, you said that you and Henry, you were in college, but, you know, I feel like this is what's been sold to the voters again. It's going to carry itself. It's going to work. But what if it doesn't work? And I understand if Spectrum, or, excuse me, O'Reilly loses their money, I don't want a hotel sitting there right in front of our convention center that could be not in very good shape, that needs some work. Maybe O'Reilly have sold it to somebody else. I don't know the contract, but where are we going to go?
Mayor Santiano, you have 30 seconds.
So these companies, these are professional companies. Nobody's going to spend $40 million in Wichita Falls without doing market studies. They've already done 3 market studies every single time it comes back. And talking about James Hewling here, actually the numbers just came out yesterday. City of Wichita Falls CVB put out that we're right on par with the state of Texas at 60% occupancy and 80% for select service. I have friends that own hotels in here, and they are full. You know, we're going to talk pre-COVID, but they are full. Spectra wants it. It's a complementary space to what they have. If they bring in conventions, of course they're going to have to use their facilities.
Okay, James, we're going to move on here. And recently, city councils across the country have cut the police department budgets and reorganized some duties out from law enforcement oversight. Do you believe the city council should re-examine how much it funds the police department?
Absolutely not, because at the end of the day, the police department of Wichita, the city of Wichita, and the county sheriff's office, they all work as a cohesive unit, and I kind of talked about this yesterday. Anytime something goes wrong in Wichita, we're going to call 911. You get into a road rage with a driver on the street, the first thing someone shouts is call 911, call the cops, call the fire department when my house is burning down. If we're sitting there cutting back funding and getting, not having the money that we can pay these officers that they deserve, because these officers go through a lot. They go through T-code training. They spend $3,000 to go get their certifications through the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement, and now you're talking about cutting their funding back so they can't support their families and then go to work with a clear conscience that I'm going to bring home a good paycheck so I can feed my family.
Okay, Mr. Hunter.
You know, it's one of the average citizen doesn't have to engage a police officer very often. But when you do, you need somebody qualified, you need somebody responsive. And defunding, I mean, that's, in this part of the world, that's not going to happen. I believe in them. I still believe in them. I think they do a wonderful job. But it's back to deal, when you need them, they are there. And I'll never, ever doubt any defunding. I mean, when I see that stuff on TV up in the Democrat-controlled cities, you know, I'm just shaking my head. I mean, how does that gain any traction, especially in this part of the world? I will never, ever, in far as the police department, I was told about a leaking roof. I was out there the next day checking it just to make sure, because, you know, I was telling the firemen at Station 2, you don't need to lay in a bed with the water in your face.
Okay, Mayor.
Defunding police, I think all 3 of us up here are going to say the exact same thing. We hold fire and police in the highest regards. We just did our speeches to them, you know, just the other day, and I think every single one of us walked in there and said the exact same things to the fire and police, that we hold them in the highest regard, and public safety is #1 for the city of Wichita Falls, right up there next to water. You know, he talks about tax increases. You know, one of the tax increases we had was in fire police, and I got 0 emails, 0 complaints from the citizens, because they knew that they were going to have to reach a little bit deeper in their pockets in order to protect the city. It's a simple subject for us. I think we live in the environment here in Wichita Falls. I think Kevin and my other opponents will agree with me in saying that you know, it's just not in Wichita Falls. That's not what we want to do here. If anything, we're looking at ways. We have a private way right now, working with a private citizen who's looking to raise $200,000 privately to help fund some body armor for for our police department. So for me, it's just not something we're ever going to do here in Wichita Falls as long as I sit in this position.
Mr. Hunter.
I got some comments to add on it. I got to commend them for giving
You
them
have 30 seconds.
Do what?
You have 30 seconds.
To give them the 5% raise, but I want to remind Stephen, the night that we went to his house, I was part that got those bonds voted down. If the bonds would have passed, that would put our tax rate from 70 to 86 cents. And my question was to him, and it's been to other police officers, there wouldn't have been room to give them a raise. I spent some money, and I'll always stand by getting those bonds voted down because I didn't believe in them. But it gave us the room to give them a raise. And I think a lot of them, I've repeated that, they've accepted it, but I just had to get it on the record. That's how that transpired.
Okay, first question here. Mayor, go ahead. You have 30 seconds.
Yeah, so, we can, if these bonds ever got passed, 7 members of council, we put these things before the voters because we want the voters to start deciding what they want to pick and choose as priority for Wichita Falls. One passed, roads. Roads are our priority. We're fine with that. We moved on from that. But fire and police, you got to hold them in highest regards, and try not to backtrack from other statements where you're saying, we don't want to raise the rate, ever raise the rate, voting no. But voting no for everything is not going to fix anything.
Okay, so Mr. Hunter, you believe taxes in Wichita Falls too high.
Yes,
How
sir.
would you create economic growth without raising taxes?
I think was the spending. When I had my plan at the Impact, trying to cut some of this fat, here's the city budget right here. And there's plenty of stuff in here that's very questionable. Very. And, I think some of it's deceptive when you compare it to other rates. I looked, I made the comparisons to Tyler. They're 25.9. They're growing at 19%. We're at 0.18. It's ideas like that. I know you're going to come back and say they got a higher tax base. Yes, they do. But I am going to meet with Tyler to see what I can do because I've talked to their incoming mayor, who's now a good friend of mine, who's a friend of my daughter-in-law's father, and I'm going to find out how they're doing it. I'm going to try to replicate and bring that to Wichita Falls. And, can we do it? No, we can't have a 25% city tax, but I think we can do some things that will apply here that will grow us with some reasonable taxes. And yes, 77.3.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, and how would you do it?
We kept our tax rate as the same as last year, and we really haven't received any criticism for that. During a COVID year, that was tough to do. Cutting $9 million out of our budget was tough to do during this year, but we did it. I don't like using political taglines or empty promises to citizens. I've never given them promises on, I'm going to vote for me, I'm going to lower your tax rate, I'm going to lower your water rate. They're empty promises. Saying trim the fat, that's just a political tagline. Saying drain the swamp, those things, they don't hold any water. There's a reality to a budget in Wichita Falls. There's a reality to how much money we bring in and how much money goes out. We have a lot of good, smart people behind those efforts. 6 months of working on this. And during the COVID era, it's almost like a slap in the face to say, oh, I've got a 400-page budget. That's true. And James hit the nail on the head a second ago by saying during that budget, the public has the opportunity during multiple hearings. So I always hear about how I'm going to drop tax rates, but nobody ever gives a plan. I was no different but when I was running for this position. I was going to save the city. But you sit here, there's a reality to a budget. So if he has a plan or somebody has a plan, please come forward because I haven't heard a plan yet.
So can you create economic growth, in your opinion, then, without raising taxes?
Yeah, you can. Well, you talk about economic growth and running the city. Those are two things that have to grow hand in hand. We have an obligation for city services and to keeping those services to our citizens. At the same time, we have an obligation to economic growth. But one man is not going to do it. A mayor is not going to do it. Any council member is not going to do it. It has to be a collaborative effort with everybody within this community to grow our community. If you plop it into Kevin Hunter's lap, he's not going to be able to grow our community by himself. You have to work well. This is half public policy position and half ambassadorship. If you don't work both sides of that, this city's not going to grow.
Okay, Mr. Hewley, and we'll be right back with Mr. Hunter, who wanted to have further words.
It goes back to me saying that it's going to start with the smaller things, focusing on smaller things in Wichita that will create economic growth. I had an idea that, downtown, if you go down there on the weekends, I've seen it pick up a little bit on traffic, but what I would like to see is Dallas and Fort Worth. It's my favorite thing to do. It's a scooter around the town. That's like my favorite thing to get on a little app and scooter around downtown and take pictures on the murals and stuff like that we did spend all that money on. So why can't we implement a plan for the city of Wichita to come up with something small like that will create some jobs, that will create people spending money on the apps? Because if you do that, they'll ride around downtown all day. I know I will. And it's just those little small things that are going to start rolling that ball down that field.
All right, Mr. Hunter, quickly, we have to get to closing
Okay, one of the
remarks.
comments I just want to add, it was in their budget. I commend them for some of the cuts they made, but they still raised $1.5 million more in property tax revenue this year than they did last year. What 1.5, 1.5. Well, yeah. It was on the tax notes. What'd you do with it? And I understand there were some cuts made. I got to commend them on it, but you're still not cutting some spending because we're still exploding on, I think, on some of our property tax revenues.
Okay, and now we're out of time. We have time for closing remarks right now. Because you opened up, Mr. Hunter, you have the opportunity, Mr. Hewling, to have remarks last. And so we'll start again first with Mr. Hunter.
I'm in the oil and gas business. I'm not in the construction business, so there will be no conflicts on this work. I feel like the number of people, what I hear, contractors, there's not the people bidding on the jobs, the city of Wichita Falls, like there should, for whatever reason. You know, Stephen's been in office for 4 years. This will be 5 and 6 if he's reelected. If you feel like he's done a good job, you need to vote for him. But if you feel like he hasn't, you want change, you need to give me a try because I've always been self-employed for most of my life. I've always been able to manage the almighty dollar. I don't look for tax bailouts. That's what I feel like the world's made of. I'm asking to give Kevin Hunter a chance. And that's back to, like I said earlier, I'm tired of griping. I'm one of those, I'm a doer. I don't even play golf. I don't hate golf, but I'm one of those that I feel like I'll be in the middle of things and getting answers. That just shows you like the impact. I had an answer from just an afternoon video. It's ideas like that I feel like I can bring to the table. And I feel like on the hotel, like I said earlier, I feel like we're being sold a bill of goods just like they did to the impact in the 90s to us. The promises were made and they haven't been kept.
Mr. Santiago, Mayor.
All right. Well, fellow Wichitans, I've proudly served this community for the past 4 years. 4 years ago, I only gave one promise, and that was to work as hard as I could each and every single day for the city of Wichita Falls. And I've kept that promise. You know, frankly and honestly, you know, as a young third-generation Wichitan, I never thought I'd be sitting here at this podium serving proudly as the mayor of Wichita Falls. But here I am, grinning ear to ear, next to these fine gentlemen, serving as your mayor proudly. And we don't have to make Wichita Falls great again. You know, Wichita Falls is great, and Wichita Falls has always been great. And frankly, we are doing fantastic. We have a strong economic plan and a strong strategic plan, but I want people to know I didn't do this on my own. When I talk about a collaborative effort, this is a collaborative effort of many good community leaders, 4A, 4B, Downtown Development, Shepherd, MSU, the Chamber of Commerce, our own staff. Shepherd, MSU, and Shepherd are two of the things that I feel are vital to our organization, and we have to hold them in the highest regards. So having a strong strategic plan and overall equitable plan with all these community members means that we have to work that plan, and it is working. It is finally working. Over 1,800 jobs in the past 5 years. Downtown development is on fire. Housing is booming. Trails are being built. Our community is ranked #1 in cost of living, and our community is second to none. Voting for Kevin Hunter or James Hewling is not going to lower your water rates or your taxes.
Mr. Hewling.
I just want to say that, you know, moving into Wichita Falls, it's been my sole duty that I've always wanted to bring entertainment and look out for the younger generation of Wichita. You know, I'm just an average blue-collar citizen worker that works for the county at $14 an hour. I have to support my family on that, and that's what, you know, I'm trying to press out to the public. Not only am I this guy from Big Brother, but I'm also very passionate about this city. You know, we raised money for, you know, the girl's family that, you know, that was slain in Wichita. We also did a lot of anti-bullying stuff for the middle school of Wichita. We also brought a big, huge turnout for Whiskey Tall when I didn't have to do all that, but I wanted to because I was very passionate about the city. So remember the Alamo, and also remember this. 407 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this nation, conceived and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. So I want y'all to remember that I'm an average blue-collar working citizen for you guys.
Okay, that does it right there for our Wichita Falls mayoral debate. We want to thank all of the candidates for being with us tonight. Thank you all so much, and thank all of you at home for tuning in.
Thank you.
Have a great night.